to rest, eating the bread of anxious toil, for he gives to his beloved sleep. Children are heritage from the Lord, the fruit of the womb is a reward. Like arrows in the hand of a warrior are the children of one's youth. Blessed is the man who fills his quiver with them. He shall not be put to shame when he speaks to his enemies in the gate. Alright, so Psalm chapter 127, verse 1. So when we look at verse 1, it says here, unless the Lord builds the house, those who build it labor in vain. Unless the Lord watches over the city, the watchman stays awake in vain. So there's two things that I want you to learn from this verse tonight. Okay? In verse 1, there's two things that you could do tonight. Number one, it is to trust God, or you could, number two, trust man. You can either learn to trust God for everything in your life, for everything, for his provision, for his you can trust him in his love, his mercy, and his grace towards you. Or you can trust man, you can trust in your own resources, you can trust in your own strength. It says here, unless the Lord builds the house. Now, how does it affect you when you trust in something? How does it affect you when you can actually trust someone, right? When I stand up, okay, I'm going to stand up. You know, I don't have to even think about it. I'm going to sit down, right? I trust that this chair is going to support me. I have faith that this chair can support me. I trust that this chair could do that for me, right? Or that even when you go in a car, you go, or you take the bus, or you go on the plane, you don't even question it sometimes, right? You just like put your faith and you trust something. It says, unless the Lord builds the house. So how does it look like when you actually trust God? How does it look like when you put your faith in God? And how does it look like when you trust in man? You know, when you trust God, you are able to rest from your labor and have peace in mind, have peace in your heart and your mind that passes all understanding. You know, that the God who created everything, that God, our Creator, He created this universe, is able to handle your problems. He knows what you are going through right now, and you know that He is in control. The God who is willing to give His one and only Son for you. He wasn't willing to spare His only Son. You know, for your salvation, He is able to freely give you all things. But then when you put your trust in man, compared to putting your trust in God, you're just limited, right? Sometimes you just can't even like trust people. And so, you know, when you put your trust in man, your resources are limited. Your resources are limited because your sources are limited in man.
There's no space.
You know, be careful when you put your trust in man, because we have a long history of failing and imperfection. A long history of sin. So our standard is just much higher than human standards, when our standard is God. You see, God is perfect, man is not. God is holy, and man is sinful. God is the creator, man is created. God is all powerful, men grow old and weary. God is eternal. He is the Alpha and the Omega. Men are born into this world, we grow old and weary, and it is appointed for man to die. God is all-knowing. You know, man has so many unanswered questions and speculations about things that are going on in this world. God is omnipresent. He is everywhere all at the same time. You know, man is limited to just in space and time. And this is what God is saying in this word too in John chapter 14, that God is preparing a place of many mansions. He's preparing a place for you. And so, you know, it comes down to where you put your trust tonight. Do you trust God or do you trust man? It comes down to where you put your trust, because it affects the way that you live. It comes down to putting your trust in God, because it affects the way that you handle your problems, the way that you handle life. It affects the way that you worship and who you worship. And so, you know, unless the Lord builds a house, those who build labor in vain. And so, you know, unless the Lord builds a house, what kind of house is Solomon talking about in this chapter, in Psalm chapter 127, verse 1? You know, King Solomon was perhaps the wisest and the richest man that lived here on earth. He was probably the wisest king of Israel. Yeah, look at what he does over here in this verse. You know, he points us to God. He points us to the Lord. That unless the Lord builds your household, everything in it is in vain. So what kind of house is he talking about? You know, I guess it could apply to both the material house or the spiritual house, right? You know, it is God that gives us every good blessing, amen? You know, everything good, everything that's good and perfect comes from God above. And so he provides for us everything that we need, like housing, like food, water, clothing, warmth, our jobs. All of the material blessings that we have and the material blessings that we can get, you know, it could either be a blessing or a curse, right? Think about the material blessings that you have and all the blessings that we enjoy here in America. You know, everybody in this room is blessed. Everybody in this country is blessed because we have the means to accumulate so many material things to the point that we're drowning in them, right? When you walk into my house, you know, growing up in the Philippines until about I was 10 years old, I would just dream of just toys and toys and toys, you know, when I was in the Philippines, right? Or dreaming of all the things that we could have if I came here to America. And now that I'm raising my kids, you know, you can't even step anywhere on the floor without a toy. Like, you know, stepping on a Lego or stepping on a teddy bear or whatever. We're just so blessed with so many material things. To the point that it becomes a curse. So all of the material blessings that we have, you know, everybody's room is so blessed with that. And if you want something,
just a quick message.
You actually have the means to get it. You know, you can get a job out there and then you can just get just so many of these things. Here's an example, right? Like a house.